The end of the AppSec team is the talk. My name is Justin Collins, President Beef on the internet, and you are at LocoMocoSec 2020. Very quick disclaimer. Very important word in the title is team, end of the AppSec team, not the end of AppSec itself, or trying to put AppSec engineers out of work. That is not the goal. That is not the point of the talk. The point of the talk is really to think about what does it mean to have an AppSec team, and does it make any sense at all? That's my disclaimer. Here's the jump to the end of the talk, also end of the team. So 3 things here. AppSec must be distributed, meaning distributed throughout the company, not on one team, not as a silo or a monolith. It has to be automated. There's no way of getting rid of the AppSec team without automation. However, very important, that is not the whole solution. You can't just say, I'm going to work towards automation and then I'll be done. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. And then finally, AppSec must be democratized. I don't mean we need to vote on AppSec. What I mean by that is, that it needs to be accessible to everyone. We're going to come back to this. These are the themes. We're going to come back to it and remind at the end. About myself, I've been on several sort of, let's say, web application security teams, starting at AT&T Interactive, which is now YP.com, Twitter, SurveyMonkey, and currently I'm at Gusto, where I'm not on the AppSec team. I actually lead the product security team. So I guess that's an important distinction in this talk. Along the way, yes, I did create a free tool called Brakeman, static analysis security tool for Ruby on Rails. Also started commercial version of that, which then was sold to Synopsys, where I also worked for a year. And actually, interesting thing about working at Synopsys for a year, that actually gave me a break from being on an AppSec team and gave me some space to think about what that means to be, to have an AppSec team, and also gave me a chance to think about, do I really want to do that kind of work and continue doing that? I did come back to being on a security team, so I guess you get the conclusion on that. So I gave this talk last year, almost exactly a year ago. And so I thought, okay, 10 years in the future, we're going to think about the future. What does AppSec look in the future? Okay, 10 years from 2019, that's 2029. There are a whole bunch of movies set in 2029. Terminators, especially the first one, 2029 is relevant. However, first of all, it's now 2020. But secondly, I also already gave a talk about, oh, I see, I messed up this slide. Anyway, I already gave a talk using Terminator as a theme, so not doing that again. The best I could do for 2030, just not a lot of movies set in 2030. This is the best I could do. Sorry about that. So I think like it's still a little bit relevant. So this is from the latest Bill and Ted movie when they jumped to 2030. Small part of the film. Again, not a lot of films set in 2030. I know that's not an important part of this talk, but just want to emphasize that. So anyways, I think the line is actually kind of funny. Dude, the future totally sent a killer robot after us. And we're going to be talking about AppSec and automation, and maybe security vulnerabilities are the killer robot. I don't know. Anyways, not a big analogy. The point is, we're thinking about the future. This is a talk that is a thinking talk, not a here's how to do it talk. So what do I want you to think about? Well, here's the question. Are AppSec teams just destined to fail? Can we even actually achieve success as an AppSec team? Is that a thing that can happen? I don't know. We're going to think about it. This is what got in my head, and what I was thinking about, again, during that sort of break at Synopsys from being on a security team. And I'd like to share my thoughts with you, but first let's set up the premise. So I thought about, okay, what are some roles that I've seen AppSec teams play, responsibilities that they had. These are things that this is not the whole list. These are just things that are definitely put on AppSec teams. And then there's also the other things that AppSec teams often end up doing, especially at companies with smaller security teams. So going through this real quick, reviewing stuff projects, code, etc., doing threat modeling, which is also kind of reviewing, doing training, running security tools. Been dealing with that a lot, triaging the results from the tools, and then finally going, yeah, I got to automate this, automating security tools, dealing with pen testing, dealing with triaging pen test results, triaging bug bounty results. Hey, let's also put security tests in our code. Oh, wait, we also need like alerts about security things. Also there's security incidents that are happening. We have to manage those. Oh, and along the way, let's try to write some secure libraries for people to use. And also let's try to train all the developers to be security champions and plus, 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 plus. And the thing about this list, look, everyone's job has a lot of responsibilities, but all of these, if you look at each one is time consuming and energy consuming. And it's very hard to do all of these things successfully. So this is, I got someday I'll put the reference on this. This is actually from the ThreadFix website, like the contact form. This just cracked me up. So the question is, what is the size of your security team? The options are just me, less than 5, or more than 5. Those are the only options. I thought, wow, that really reflects the state of application security. So let's think about this. One moment. So here we have a visual representation. This is 96 developers and 4 people on the AppSec team. That's actually a much better ratio than most companies, but we're just going to go with this as like, let's pretend 96 developers, 4 AppSec people. What do the developers produce? A tsunami of work for the AppSec team, right? That's a lot of developers writing a lot of code all the time, and 4 AppSec people to try to, I don't know, make it secure, ensure that it's in some way, review it maybe, run tools, deal with all these results, all those roles we were talking about. And keep in mind, this is actually a good ratio. Like, hey, that's actually a pretty good size AppSec team for that many developers. This is, if we zoom in on the AppSec team, this is what their faces look like. I spent a lot of time getting those expressions just right. So you're welcome for the great graphic design there. So what's coming in? Well, we got code coming in. We've got, hey, design reviews, CVEs, bug bounty stuff coming in from outside. We've got reports from tools coming in, those security incidents I was mentioning. And then my favorite is the, hey, I have a quick question. And that generally leads to like several hours of work of like, wait, why are you even asking that question? What is the context of this? Okay, let me try to have like some relevant security advice. Oh, let me also explain like why I'm giving this security advice, etc. So just these things coming in is a lot for just these 4 people. So this is another representation of the same thing. And this is what I started feeling working on multiple AppSec teams, is I just started to feel like I was in this grind of like, okay, there's always way too many design reviews to cover. They require too much context, and it's very hard to wrap my head around and give meaningful advice and feedback. There's no way you can review all the code. That's just impossible. Doesn't matter how much time you have, doesn't matter the size of the code base. You're never going to get to review all the code before it ships. Just impossible. Bug bounties coming in, CVEs coming out, I got to update stuff, other scan reports coming in, those security incidents, those questions, and then it just keeps going and repeating and overlapping and going. And I just started feeling like it was a grind and I wasn't getting anywhere. Because over here on the other side, we have our plan for, next quarter or next year, we're going to do the work that actually would have a systemic impact on improving the security at our company. We will be definitely getting to that next quarter or maybe next year. But instead, we end up just stuck in this grind, doing the same things over and over again and not being able to make forward progress. That's how I felt. So you may be thinking, okay, 96 developers, 4 people on the AppSec team. The problem is clearly the AppSec team is just too small. Therefore, we'll just hire more of them. No problem. Problem is now solved, right? I'm imagining your laughter, by the way, through this whole thing. You find it hilarious. It's great. So here we go, problem solved. Now we have just as many AppSec people as developers, and now we can handle all that code. We can review all of it, all the design reviews, all those quick questions. We've got it. Of course, this is never going to happen. There aren't enough AppSec people in the world to do this for every company, and it's impossible to even hire this many people at one company. It's just impossible. There's no way these numbers work. So last year, this slide was up actually at LocoMocoSec. There's no numbers or anything. It just shows that, hey, there's a big gap between how fast we're shipping code and the tools, the budget we have for tools, and how many people we can hire to secure it. However, I want to point out that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many people you have or your tool budget. It's never going to keep up. Because people just don't scale. You can't scale to this problem by using more people and more people time. It's just not going to work because you're always going to have more developers producing more code and shipping more products than you can keep up with. So as we know, people don't scale, machines scale. So we'll just throw some automation on it. No problem, problem solved. Well, a few years ago, Neil Matatal, Alex Smolin, and myself, we gave this talk about the security automation work that we'd been doing at Twitter. And looking back, honestly, very primitive compared to the off-the-shelf solutions that you have today. But people still reference this talk to me. They say, oh, I loved your talk. I mean, it wasn't just my talk, but when they're talking to me, they say your talk about robots at Twitter or whatever. But I just want to point something out real quick. This was 2012, 8 years ago, almost exactly. If this is what you're looking at, is like, yeah, this is what I need to move in that direction. You've already lost. Like, you're already so far behind where we need to be for AppSec. And I'm sorry to put it bluntly like that, but this talk is an ancient relic now, and I'm just sorry to say that. You can still go watch it, but it's an ancient relic. You can't automate everything, and I'll be very honest. 8 years ago, I was like, yeah, we're going to automate everything, and then that's going to free up all of our time to do things like product or design reviews, product reviews, and all this cool stuff that we just don't have time for right now. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work that way. You can't automate everything. It's not the whole solution. So we have to think a little bit bigger than, oh, we'll just automate everything. The machines will take care of everything for us. So I want to talk about this for a minute, and I don't want to disparage anyone who said this, but I think we've all heard it. Our friends have said it. Maybe our colleagues. We've heard them say security is everyone's job, and they're not wrong. Okay. But I think maybe sometimes it comes across without meaningful content behind it. So, to follow up with, right? Who gets paid when there's a security issue? Is it everyone? No, it's the security team. There's this great tweet, and I'm sorry it's old now. It cracks me up in some ways because it's from my friend Matt Conda, but he's quoting Michael Coates, who was my boss at Twitter for a little bit. And what he said was, the security team says no, meaning, no, you can't ship that. No, that's insecure. No, you can't do this. You can't do that. They say no because they're incorrectly held accountable for all flaws. When there's a security issue, security team gets paid. Wait, did the security team write the code? No, probably not. Maybe, but probably not. Yet when there's a security issue, security team is involved. And honestly, they're questioned. Hey, what happened? Did we not catch this in our review? Did our automated tools not catch this? Did our bug bounty not catch this? Did our security alerts not catch this? Security team, why didn't you catch this? And so that leads the security team to say, look, I'm not taking any risks, because if I take a risk and it doesn't pan out, I get blamed for it. I'm going to be the one who gets paged at 2 in the morning on the weekend. So coming back to security is everyone's job. We're going to explore this a little bit more, but I do want you to take a moment and put yourself in a non-security person's shoes and think about this for just a second. Let's think about this deeper. So this is a very scientific diagram. I hope it comes across okay. The blue box is my actual job, not my job as a security person. Again, we're pretending we're someone else. My actual job, like 7 hours a day. right? I have to eat lunch and go to the bathroom and so on. Maybe 7 hours a day, I'm doing my actual job. And then someone comes and says, hey, also security is your job. And first of all, you're like, I don't know what security is. That's some vague thing. I don't know, some cloud. Where do I put it into the 7 hours where I'm doing my actual job? And then at that point, you go, whatever. All right. Yeah, they say it's everyone's job, but you know what? There's a security team. Security is in their name. I think it's actually their job. Why would I do their job? They're not doing my job. So apologize in advance. These quotes are a little bit old. So a couple years ago at LocoMocoSec, Gene Kim said this. He was talking about at the time, the new research that he had come out with. He said high performers, meaning high performing companies, because they are integrating information security objectives into everyone's daily work, that's everyone's job, are spending half as much time remediating security issues. Meaning, compared to other companies, they are spending less time, half as much time, fixing security issues because their security objectives are just part of everyone's work. Very interesting. Okay. This also came out 2018 from Application Security Statistics Report. It says organizations that successfully embed security into a DevOps experience. Sorry, let me start again. Organizations that successfully embed security into DevOps experience a 50% drop in their production vulnerabilities, so half as many vulnerabilities in production, and their time to fix or remediate improves by 25%. So they have fewer vulnerabilities in production, and they fix them faster. That sounds like a good thing. Although I do want to point out the successfully embed security part. You don't just get it somehow magically. Finally, from the DevOps Handbook, it says, in high-performing organizations, quality, availability, and security aren't the responsibility of individual departments, but are a part of everyone's job every day. So I told you I don't like this. Security is part of everyone's job. And yet all these quotes are saying, hey, if security is part of everyone's job every day, things are better. And now you're like, oh no. Okay, this is one of those DevSecOps, SecDevOps. It's one of these talks. And yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit. I do want you to read this book. I think it will give you some important insight into, you don't have to read the whole thing. It's like the first few chapters that are very relevant to security. And I think it'll give you some insight into why I'm saying AppSec teams are going to go away. We can't, it's not sustainable the way we're doing them. I'm going to take a moment. I'm sorry I didn't put, just indulge me for one moment, because I saw this morning, and this is terrible. It's terrible to do this during a talk. But there's, on page 33, there's some bullet points, and it's talking about ineffective quality controls. And keep in mind, security is a quality control. And these are examples of ineffective security controls. One is requiring another team to complete tedious, error-prone, and manual tasks that could be easily automated and run as needed by the team that needs the work performed. Oh, so like if I had a security tool, it would be better if I, the security person, did not run the tool, but the people who actually need the results run it, like the developers? Oh, interesting. Okay. Requiring approvals from busy people who are distant from the work, forcing them to make decisions without adequate knowledge of the work or the potential implications, or to merely rubber stamp their approvals. Oh my gosh, wait, that sounds like the security team. They're distant from the work, but we need approvals for them. Oh, wow, okay. That seems very relevant to us. And again, this is about quality controls. And I apologize for reading from a book and not having the words on the slides. That's a terrible way to present. Take a look at this book. I think it will really help. All right, let's backtrack a little bit. Why DevOps? Okay, what was happening before? We had developers, we had operations, there was a wall in between them. The developers, all 96 of them, would take their code, sometimes literally package it up like a jar file or a zip file, and throw it over a wall to the operations team and say, hey, operations, here's the code, make it run. If something goes wrong, you'll get paged. See you later, I'm working on the new features. Also notice the operation teams is quite small compared to the developers. Here's another example. Developers produce the code, They throw it over a wall to the QA team. Now the QA team, and again, sometimes literally as a tar file, a zip file, a jar file, an exe, here QA, test this. And QA is like, okay, I guess I'll do my best, right? Similar, DBA team, developers say, hey, I need to change the database, or I need you to fix something in the database. Hey, DBA team, can you fix this for me? Now, I think there's something kind of in similar to all these, same about these teams. See if you can figure it out. Finally, developers and AppSec, same thing, throwing the code over the wall. Here, AppSec, can you make sure this is secure for me? I need your approval. I need you to sign up. Make sure it's secure. Get back to me. I need to ship this today. So what are the problems with walls? I wish actually I could make a whole talk about the problems with walls, but we're going to have to go through them quickly. I apologize for that. You can't see through a wall. It's just the truth. You can't see through a wall. You can't see what's going on the other side. It's not near you. It's over there. It's something over there. How am I going to be effective at my job? How am I going to give effective security advice if I'm over here on one side of the wall and the developers are on the other side? There's inconsistency. Stuff on one side of the wall is not the same as stuff on the other side of the wall. So developers are writing their code, on their machines, works, they hand it to QA, doesn't work. Oops, well, sorry, you're on the other side of the wall, works for me. Or, hey, security, try to run this code and make sure it's secure, but maybe you don't have the same environment. These walls lead to long feedback cycles. Long feedback cycles are very bad for security, they're bad for software, they're bad for business. But when it takes time to throw things over the wall, get it into your Jira queue, get someone to look at it, throw it back over the wall into a different Jira queue, it takes a long time. Not a good thing. And then finally, I think this is really important. Walls create this transfer of responsibility. Like, hey, I gave this, it was all good on my side. I did my job. You take a look at it. You do your job. You're the security team. I'm not the security team. You make sure it's secure. All right. So let's take a look at these other teams. So operations is everyone's job. I am going to go through this a little bit quickly because of time, but I think you'll get the gist. So operations is everyone's job. All right, infrastructure is code. Hey, developers can write code. They can write code for our infrastructure. It goes into GitHub. That's where developers live. Deployments are automatic, just goes out. You don't hand it off to another team. New environments, press a button, new environment, not dealing with an operations or infrastructure team. Hey, I want a new service. Boop, press a button, run some code. Hey, I have a new service. It's on demand. It's not throwing it over a wall to someone else. Finally, alerts, logs, metrics available to everyone. Available to everyone. That's democratization. That means it's no longer, hey, operations, hey, what's going on in production? What's this thing? Where's the graphs? Can you look it up? Can you run the query? No, everyone can do it. No problem. QA is everyone's job. Hey, test-driven development. You're the developer. You're writing the code. You're right there. Write the tests for the code. You know what the expected behavior is. You write the test. You can do it. Tests can be run on development machines. There's that locality. Tests run here, they pass, right? I don't have to send it up to a QA machine or, maybe I have to run it in CI, but the point is I can run it locally if I need to get my job done. They're run in CI. Feature flags are on for employees. This comes from GitHub, but also, you could have a canary server that your employees use or whatever. The point is, look at this. Not only is QA everyone's job like, oh yeah, QA, and we're putting more work on developers. If your employees are using your product, especially features before they ship to your customers, now literally your whole company is the QA team. It's literally just part of everyone's job, but not like here's an extra thing that you do. No, it's just I'm using our product. I found a bug. I'm going to open a ticket for someone to address it. Wow. Now it's literally everyone's job, but not an extra job. All right, DBA is everyone's job. I think you kind of get the gist here. Databases happen automatically. The schema lives in code. I don't have to wait on someone else to change it for me. Setup migration, it's all automated. The metrics are available to everyone, or maybe you can query like a read-only replica or something where you can get in and touch the database or see metrics without talking to a DBA team. So what does it mean to have security look like everyone's job? I have to pick up the pace a little bit. Sorry, my reading to you from a book took up some time. But here's where I think things need to go. So for application security, or one of these three things needs to happen. One, it needs to disappear, right? In a lot of ways, operations has disappeared, DBA has disappeared, QA has disappeared, right? Or it can be integrated into developers' daily work. That's like writing tests, getting feedback on my pull requests, tools running automatically. That's part of my daily work. It's there, but it's not an extra thing that I do. It's just part of my work. Or if neither of those can be applied, things like bug bounty reports or whatever, okay, make sure that it's something that someone can actually look at and take action on it without involving a security team, ideally. So I told you at the beginning, maybe I didn't emphasize it enough. This is not a how-to talk. This is a think about where we are and think about where we could be or where we need to be. So these are just some suggestions. I'm not saying this will work. I'm not saying I've seen this work. This is just taking what we talked about and making some suggestions. So how do we make it disappear? Hey, automated dependency updates. We're all moving in this direction. Well, I hope we're moving in this direction. The industry is moving in this direction. It just goes away. It just happens automatically. Deploy on fully patched systems. Hey, now we don't have to worry about, do we have vulnerabilities in the operating system we're running on? Every time we redeploy, the system is fully up to date, or containers and all that stuff. Security needs to be built into frameworks and libraries. We know this, but it's just another way of making security disappear. When the framework just takes care of it for you, in the cases that it can, it's just gone, right? APIs that are secure by default. This is very important. If I have to set a special flag or do something additional to get the secure version of the API, I'm going to fail, right? It has to be secure by default. And the environments that we deploy into should be secure by default. This was a tweet from a while back. Bot found a vulnerability and dependency, bot opened a PR, CI verified it, bot merged it, bot celebrated. No humans involved, just happened. This is the automation that we can do. Let's talk about integrating security, meaning it's part of daily work. Code reviews, having security checklists, part of code review. That again, remember, security team should actually not be doing code reviews most of the time. That's something developers should be doing. Developers should be able to threat model on their own. Security tests should be part of the test suite, not some separate thing. It should be part of the test suite. Again, it's where developers live. It's integrated into their daily work. Security stands, of course, they should be automated. They should be something they're on demand. It's not something that the security team does. Security team sets it up. Maybe they curate it a little bit. After that, it's automated. And it's just part of my work. Vulnerabilities are just part of the pull request flow. It's part of my job, my flow as a developer. I see vulnerabilities, I fix them, done. And again, I already read from the book, but code needs to be peer reviewed. Guess what, AppSec team, you're not the peers of developers. You're not. Most of the time, you're not working in the same code. You don't have the same context. You actually are not an effective peer reviewer, except for just obvious security things. Hey, you're using MD5. Hey, you're storing something in plain text that you shouldn't be. That looks like SQL injection. Those are things that really tools can probably take care of. So the people who need to be able to do a code review for security are actually other developers, not the AppSec team. Security alerts, like I said, they should be actionable. Ideally, they go to the responsible developers rather than to the security team, right? It's tricky, but I think it's possible. All right, I know I'm going a little bit fast here. Revisiting these roles. This is just a suggestion, but let's take these roles and see who else could do these things instead of the AppSec team, because I think the AppSec team is going to go away, just like DBA teams and QA teams and operations teams to some extent. They've definitely transformed. All right, just an example. Developers can do like we said, reviews, threat modeling, security tests, triaging of reports, bugs, etc. Yeah, they might need some assistance, but I think it's all about making it something that they can consume. I'm not saying that you can just hand these things off today. No, we're talking about the future, like at least 10 years in the future. What can we do to get to this kind of future? Platform or tools team, they can deal with automating things and setting up alerts and even securing libraries. Again, remember, it can be a security-minded person or a person with security experience on that team. It's just not a team that's called AppSec. One thing, there are many things that I liked about working at Twitter, some things I didn't. One thing that was great is that there was a team that did incident management, not the security team. All incidents were managed by one team. That was their expertise. They manage incidents, not the security team. It made things so much easier. Training developers, pen testing, you can outsource that. Again, in 10 years, my opinion on the training is we still have a ways to go before we can truly outsource this and still be effective. What's left for the AppSec teams? Here's the list. I distributed them. What's left? Create security champions. I don't like security champions. You know why? You're actually just taking the AppSec team and putting it on other teams, and then those people have the same problems. They're going to burn out because they're going to be the one security person on that team. They can't do all of this work. They can't do all these roles. So, let's get rid of security champions. Why? Because everyone should be a security champion because it's part of everyone's job. Remember? All right. Okay, so we're talking about end of the AppSec team. To review, it has to be distributed. Distributed meaning distributed across the company, or even possibly outsourced in some cases. Has to be automated. There's no way getting around it to get to this kind of future where we don't have a team of AppSec engineers that are doing all of this work. It has to be automated. I think since 2012, we have made a lot of progress in this direction, but it's still not the case that I can go and just be like, hey, joined a new company, no AppSec team. Let me give somebody some money and all my AppSec has been automated. No, we're not there yet. I think we're getting closer, but we're not there yet. And finally, it has to be democratized. That means, again, not that we vote on AppSec, the other definition of democratized, which means everyone has access to it. And because I think I'm going to just take one moment here to talk about this just a little bit. If I take off my AppSec hat, which again, it's been 10 years of AppSec for me, I'm going to take that off. I'm going to go in with I'm maybe a developer. I want to learn about security. I want to learn about AppSec. Yeah, there's a lot of resources out there, but quality varies a lot. Can I get into it as just a developer that's trying to do my job but do it better? I'm not sure that I can. So we need to work on democratizing AppSec, making it available to everyone, accessible to everyone in a way that allows them to not become AppSec engineers, but to become developers or whatever their role is who understand AppSec and can be effective at implementing security at their company. Okay, second reminder. Think about all the work that your AppSec team does. I'm just going to assume you have an AppSec team. Think about, are there ways that work can either disappear, meaning it's just not a thing anymore? Maybe, updating packages or, pressing buttons to update an operating system is not something that we do in production anymore. It just goes away. It disappears. It's great. If it can't disappear, maybe it's something that's just integrated into developers' daily work, right? They're writing tests. Okay, they write a security test. They're opening a pull request. One thing that I think has changed a lot is at this point, most developers are expecting and want automated feedback. They want the linters to run. They want the style tools to run. And they want the security tools to run as part of their development process, as part of the pull request, as part of the automated feedback that they get. That's where it needs to live. And again, I think we're getting so close to that just being a off-the-shelf push button, but it's just one aspect. Finally, if it can't fit in those first two categories, is it something that we can take and turn it into something that can go directly to a developer, and they can take action on it and take care of it. Now, I think bug bounties is probably like I'll take them as an example, maybe a contentious example. Can we get to a place, we're talking about 10 years in the future, can we get to a place where a bug bounty report can be reported by someone anywhere in the world and successfully handed off to a developer who can successfully triage and remediate it without involving a security team? Because at some point we have to get there. Otherwise, we're not going to be successful. So that's just an example of, can we take this kind of thing and turn it, I use the term alert here, report, whatever it is, has to be something that a developer can pick up and take action on it themselves without involving the security team. Okay, I know I took a little bit extra time there. I apologize for that. Thank you very much for listening. Again, you can find me on the internet at President Beef. On Twitter is probably the best way to contact me, or my website, presidentbeef.com, etc. That is all I had.
All right. Thank you very much, Justin, and a LocoMocoSec veteran. Glad to have you. Even have the leg. I don't know if that's from last year, but we hope you have it. And thank you again for being with us. We're going to jump into some Q&A. First question here is: it sounds like a lot of these themes echo what some of our professionals are seeing day to day at their work: automated scanning, checklists, and PRs. How do you handle signal to noise for these tools when it comes to alerts?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I will repeat myself again. We're talking about the future. So if you feel like, look, I can't put these automated tools in front of my developers because they're too noisy or they're not actionable, great, what can we do? Like, how can we get to this future? I think people are doing work in this space, work in curation, work in curation, work in making it so that when you get a result out of these tools, you have all the information you need to understand and take action on it. But really, let me flip this around a little bit. It's not actually about security teams solving this problem. There are these companies out there that make, I want to say, billions of dollars on these tools. Take that money and make the tools better. That's all I can say about that.
Okay. Thank you for offering that. So at one point during your talk, you kind of go into the different type of work that application security teams are seeing. You touch on security test. And so there's a question, can you expand a little bit more on security tests and what some case samples of security tests might be?
Yeah, sure. What I'm trying to reference there, I'm sorry if this was definitely not clear. When I say tests, I mean the tests that are living alongside your code, the tests that your developers run, the tests that your developers write. If you can get security tests in there that are running at the same time, the same way, you're writing them in sort of the same test-driven development kind of way, that's what I'm talking about, getting those tests in any way that you can. But in particular, like I said, so imagine this scenario. You've written a test for, I don't know, authorization, probably an easy one that developers would deal with anyway. But you have the test is passing, you merge it, everything's good. A year later, developers writing code, test fails. Well, tests failing and figuring out why they failed and fixing them, that is part of a developer's everyday life. So now that test has just become, oh yeah, this is another part of my job. This is how I do my job anyway. The fact that it's security related is sort of irrelevant. Does that make sense?
I will leave that one to
the question.
No, totally fine. I appreciate you addressing the question, and I believe you've shared at President Beef. So I know you're kind of running a strong race right now, but if that's the platform you're on, people know how to reach out to you. Okay, so I want to get into another question. we do have time. And the only thing, so there's no speaker after you, so I want to make sure we touch on these, is how do you efficiently manage when developers are, throwing over the wall, so to speak, to AppSec for checks that may be caused by the low security knowledge inside the teams?
Hey, that's like a really good question. And so I mentioned, well, maybe I didn't mention. So I joined Gusto about a year ago, and I'm sorry, a year and 1 day ago. And it was actually after
Okay.
I had put this talk together. And um, and so I've actually thought about this a lot. And there are a couple things that come to mind. One is it's training. And I know some people think training doesn't work, but I think if we're thinking into the future, if you think training doesn't work right now, but you also believe we need to distribute this work, then we need to figure out how. Maybe training is the wrong word. Education, awareness. Maybe we're using words that are too prejudiced in some way. But anyways, I can tell you what I did at Gusto. First, I tried to buy a solution, didn't find what I wanted, so I built training for and the team built training for the developers, and rolled it out. The other thing, and we're still working on it, right? We're still rolling it out. We're still adding to it. But in my mind, it's your job to fix that knowledge gap. The second thing there, and another thing, again, I'm trying really hard to put these things into practice, so that in a couple years I can come back and say, here's my follow up, and what worked or didn't work based on my ideas in this talk. But another thing that I pushed really hard is that the security team's not responsible. We're not responsible for making security decisions. We're not responsible for making sure the code is secure. We're responsible for giving you the tools you need. We're responsible for giving you the knowledge you need. We're responsible for giving you risk assessments and our opinions on things. We are not responsible for making the final decision outside of some, let's say, like legally required scenarios. We're not responsible for making the final decision. The person who's writing the code, who's shipping the product, shipping the feature, they're the ones who ultimately need to make the decision with the knowledge and information we've provided to them, and also have the responsibility if something goes wrong. And we're there to back them up, but we're not there to take responsibility and make decisions. And I think reading into this question a little bit, what I've seen before is that sort of request for the rubber stamp. Security team, can you put your security stamp of approval on this? I need to ship it. I need to get this feature out, et cetera. And that is taking the responsibility off of the developer, the product designer, et cetera, and putting it right onto the security team. And that's what you got to push back and be like, nope, it's not my responsibility. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to make the decision.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that does answer, one or two upcoming questions. And I'll just say that because we will have to transition from the Q&A here, but there was a question about how do you go about implementing your advice that you're offering in your current role, which I believe you kind of touched on at Gusto. And then there's another question, how would you get buy-in when lawyers, compliance devs prefer a model where an AppSec person plays an active role to review and approve, which I think you touched on as well. There's one question that that we were not able to get to, but I think I would encourage everyone to reach out to you on Twitter at President Beef. And then I know you'll also be back at Locomoco Sec next year. Is that cultural
Absolutely.
aspect, and you kind of see building this into the future, 10 years out, and have you seen this already? But we are at time. Justin, thank you very much for being here with us, and aloha.
Thank you.